We were talking about energy conservation, but before we get back to that, we would just like to let you know that we've been on the air for 10 years and we would like to keep it that way. So please feel free to call us at 213-764-7641, or you can send us an email at cu@trojanvision.com. Now we're going to get back to David Freeman, and we're going to finish talking about your book, Winning Our Energy Independence. And we were talking about alternative ways that we can prevent ourselves from getting into the issues that we're having right now with the environment. So,
well, I think that individual people can make a difference. When you go down to buy a car, if you said to the dealer, you know, I want a plug-in hybrid. I want a hybrid car that I can plug into the electric system where I can get juice at night when your power plant's otherwise sleeping, and where the cost to me as a consumer will be less than $1 a gallon compared to what I pay for gasoline. Now, I'm not going to buy another car until you get me a plug-in hybrid. If 1 million people would go to the showrooms and say that to the dealers, that would have more impact on Detroit than anything that any congressman could say, and perhaps more important than any law. But we need laws too. The two together can make it happen. That's a biggie, the car you drive. Another biggie is how the electricity that you use is made. And you should tell your utility, I want green power. I'm willing to pay a little bit more in my utility bill so I can reduce my health bill and reduce my tax bill for protecting the oil lifeline overseas, and that we can spend the money here at home, because we can take that electricity and replace imported oil in this hybrid car. So we need two big things. We need the cars and trucks and buses to become hybrids, plug-in, and then we need the electric supply to become greener and greener at the same time. And after 10 or 15 years, all the electricity can come from renewable sources, and it can take care of all of our needs in the form of electricity or converted to hydrogen like we talked about earlier. We've got the technology to do it. What we don't have is the willpower and the public opinion and the courage to overcome the big money of big oil and big coal and the nukes.
now the problem that I think a lot of people feel is that these oil companies have just such a stronghold on our country. How can we change the infrastructure that we can allow hydrogen and some of these other solar power sources to be able to be used versus just oil?
Well, these oil companies are by no means stupid. And if enough programs are put in place so that we really get serious about moving to these alternatives, they will go into those businesses. Don't worry about the oil companies. They're going to survive. Mother Earth will survive too. It's us human beings that are endangered. And if we don't change our ways, it won't happen. Now, the bogeyman that they put out is, well, it's too expensive. The renewables cost more. Well, that's not true. They don't cost more to the consumer. The problem is that the bill for oil doesn't include all the taxes we pay for a military to protect the oil coming in from overseas. It doesn't include all the money we're spending in the Iraq War. You know, why do you think we're in Iraq? It's not, there are a lot of other places on earth with despots. We've invaded there to protect the oil interest in large part. Even Greenspan agreed with that. So we've got to recognize that we're paying huge taxes, shedding our blood over oil, so that if we pay a little bit more in our energy bill for electricity that can replace that oil, it's a bargain for the consumer. The cheapest thing on earth really is the sun. But the oil companies and the energy companies would let you believe just the opposite. The other bogeyman is that the solar power is spread thin and the sun doesn't shine at night and it just won't work. They're wrong. Of course the sun doesn't shine at night, but you can store solar electricity in the form of hydrogen, and besides, we can use the existing power plants that do run on natural gas, which is the cleanest fuel, to meet our nighttime needs. We don't use a lot of electricity at night anyhow, and we need to charge batteries at night. I've been in the electric business most of my life. We can have an electric power supply that's primarily renewable energy, and it's firmed up now by natural gas, in the future by hydrogen. The big, huge source of energy on this earth is the sun. The coal and those things are relatively small in quantities, and they'll run out. And once we get an economy that's based upon the sun, it's going to last as long as there's life on this earth, because when the sun goes out, we're all dead anyhow.
Wow. So right now we have a 2008 presidential election that's going on, and well, not the election yet, but we're going through the primaries, and energy is a very hot topic. Right now, are there any candidates that you feel will really push this energy efficiency agenda?
Well, I think that all of them are trying to pay lip service to it. Here's a problem. I haven't really heard, well, I have heard McCain talk, and he's for everything. You know, he's for the poisons, and he's for renewables. Well, that's the latest line of the oil companies. They'll give you an ad. You listen to some of those ads, and they say, oh, we're an oil company, but we're for solar power too. Yeah, they put 1 penny into solar and $1 into oil. Of course they're paying lip service to solar power, but they're trying to, if somebody was selling you 2 different brands of shoe polish, and one of them was poison and the other wasn't, you wouldn't be all excited about their sales pitch. I mean, what we don't recognize is that the oil is killing us, that the nuclear power can blow us from here to hell and back, and that the coal is the principal source of air pollution and global warming. They are poisons, and to put them in the same breath with solar power and wind is to fool the people. So I think that some of the candidates are stronger for renewables and efficiency, but frankly, I don't want to sound disrespectful, but all of them could learn a bit from reading my book. I mean, they need to escalate this. They talk about it as one of 4 or 5 or 6 issues. I think it's fundamental. If we don't cure this environmental energy crisis that we have, we will not have a civilization. Now, I think education is fundamental also. There are a lot of things that are fundamental, but we can't think of the energy environment thing as just another item on the laundry list, and the measures that they're proposing are totally inadequate. We ought to outlaw the poisons, at least for the future, and phase out the existing ones. There's not the strength of purpose in the sense of urgency that I think is needed, and not the leadership that America needs to assert on this issue. But it can happen. I think a new president will get educated, especially if the young people of this country make this issue their #1 issue, as it should be.
Now, I would like to just go back a little bit into your childhood, and I was wondering about your parents. How did they influence you into energy conservation?
Well, my mother and father were in the Depression. Nobody had to tell them to cut the lights out. I mean, they were intelligently frugal of necessity. What people don't realize that folks back in 1930s and 40s didn't have all this stuff that everybody has, and we were conservationists without even knowing it. You know, Lyndon Johnson used to go around the White House turning off the lights because he grew up in that period. But my parents, you know, sacrificed so I could get an education, and they came from the old country, and they loved America in a way that native-born people really don't know how, because they know the difference. I mean, I was in World War II. I'm very proud of this country, but we need a mirror. We look like we're big bullies to the rest of the world now, and we need to cut our military way down and start putting our money into solar panels and into education and in healthcare and these things. And it's going to take the equivalent of a revolution in thinking to make that happen. because the person with the most missiles is not the person leading the world. It's the person with the most educated people and the folks that will develop and implement this technology so this civilization of ours can survive.
Now, February is Black History Month, and I have heard that you had some ties to the civil rights movement.
I sat in the lunch counter with black people in Knoxville, Tennessee, and had other white people spit at me and call me a traitor. They said, well, we can understand why the black people sit there. Well, why are you there? And I said, well, because my parents suffered discrimination, and I think these folks have a right to be served, and I'm sitting with them. But I tell you, it was especially tough to be a white person. And indeed, I failed to get a job as a civil rights lawyer because when I was interviewed in Washington, the head of it said, well, Dave, we're not going to hire you because you wouldn't do any good in front of a Southern jury. They would think, as a white man, that you were a traitor. and so my ambition was to be a civil rights lawyer, but I ended up at the Federal Power Commission and got into this energy stuff. So I have to admit that my heart really is excited about the idea of a black person as president. I can also understand how women could get excited about having a woman as the president, so it's a tough choice.
Now, where can our viewers find your book?
At Amazon.com. I mean, Amazon is selling it, and it's available, I think, if you ask in a bookstore, but it's not, I'm not a celebrity, and this is not something that's out on the front of the bookshelves in the bookstores. You could also look at my website, which I think is greencowboy.com. But Amazon will sell you the book if you're interested. And I'd love to come to your campus if anybody from any of the schools are watching this thing, and see if I can help excite this generation to make it their cause.
Well, that's it for See You at USC tonight. We'd like to thank you, David Freeman, for coming out. We appreciate it. And we'd like to thank you for tuning in. Tune in next time to See You at USC, the best college talk show on television.
At USC is brought to you by the University of Southern California's School of Cinematic Arts.